All right. Welcome, everyone, to the God Talk with Gabriel podcast. Today, I have a special guest. She is the CEO and owner of Desperation to Faith. Also, is the host and owner of Healthy Conversations podcast. And she is most importantly my best friend. Round of applause for Ronquel Bar. Yay. Say hi to the people, Ronquel.
Hello, everyone.
Yes. Ronquel has been on the show before. So we can skip all the pleasantries and introductions and get right into the nitty gritty. You agree?
I agree.
Yeah. Back to the work again, back on this grind. Back on my feet to stand, back to the times. Back to deliverance, still in my prime. Back so the thoughts won't keep pressing my mind. So, we dated at one point in our lives.
We did.
We did. Was it not just the greatest thing that you've ever been a part of? Yes.
I am not. I am not.
Okay. Anyway, we dated, and most people who date don't continue to be friends, let alone become best friends afterwards. But I'll just tell my little part of the story. So what happened was, this what happened, y'all. So I'm in church one day and I see her there, and I'm like, wow, it's nice to see her. And I felt an unction in my spirit to go and talk to her. Now, my initial mindset was not to date you. She doesn't think that was true, but it's the truth. I promise y'all. My initial thing was not to date her. I was not just trying to talk to her or get with her. I genuinely just wanted to be friends and get to know her. And so that's what I did. That's how it started. But as I got to know you, I realized how wonderful of a woman you are. And I was like, I would like to make her mine. So I did what I'm decent at, which is, trying to get you to like me back. So eventually you did. And I was happy. Now, up to that point, what was your side of the story? Because we don't want to leave you out.
Okay, y'all. So here's my side of the story. It's just like he said, I was in church. I had not too long ago, just started really coming back to the church. And so when I did, it was after one service. I don't know what he was doing, but I was getting ready to leave out. I know that for sure. And he approached me, and when he came up to me, he just like said hi and asked me like what I've been up to. And then he proceeded to like make conversation, like he wanted, us to be friends or like have some type of connection. In that very moment, I just already knew in my mind, like, oh, he likes me and he's gonna try and talk to me. So it's gonna be a hard pass, but
Yes.
but it didn't happen that way. Like we started out as friends. Actually that day, we just had a conversation. Nothing like was transpired, like no phone number or like nothing like that type of stuff. It was just conversation. It wasn't until after we went to a church event. It was a couple church events that some women from our church was having, actually my aunts. But as they were having these events continuously, we saw each other a little bit more, which then turned into him like reaching out to me on social media. And we talked to each other on social media a little bit more outside of seeing each other like at church. So we were friends for a decent amount of time before he actually tried to like, shimmy his way in there. But yeah, he was very nice, very charming. He was different from a lot of guys that I had dated previously before. So That was already like, a plus for him. And then he was saved and for real sold out. So that was another thing.
Glory.
But I just wasn't ready, like for real at that time. I didn't feel like I was really ready to like pursue relationships. So it took us a while. It took us like what? We were friends for like what?
Probably
Maybe
like 4 or 5 months, honestly.
it was longer than that.
Well, no, we ended up date. We met each other. We started talking in July of 2017. We
Yes.
officially got together in June of 20. Yeah, so yeah, about a year. You're right.
Yeah, it was about a year. We were like friends for like about a year. I mean, like I guess you can add the um getting to know one another and like liking each other. That was like all of maybe 5 or 6 months. But like before those 5 or 6 months, we were genuinely just friends. And then, we came to that point where it was like, okay, we both like each other. So, but we still didn't step into like the dating realm, too soon after that. We just still continued on being friends, and we just shared this mutual liking of one another until we decided to, take the next step, which was we started actually dating, and he was my man, y'all. He was my man.
And happy a man I was. Now we did this with the mindset of obviously dating to eventually get to marriage,
Of
because we
course.
were both saved, and we understood that you don't get into relationships without having the mindset of eventually getting married. Um, like any relationship, we had positives, we had some things we had to overcome. I was immature in a lot of areas that you were very mature in.
He admits it.
I I can well, I can't say happily, but I can honestly say that there were some areas, especially with outside forces, that I was not mature in. So, for example, I talk to family and things about things that go on in my life. I had to learn that you can't talk to everybody about your relationship. And so I learned that out of our relationship. And she used to be on my head about it. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. And so I learned to, keep that to myself. Is there anything that you learned while you dated? I never asked you this.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. There were several things that I learned. But one, first and foremost, like he said, when it comes to being in a relationship with someone, it's nothing wrong with having, maybe that one or so person that you can confide in. But someone that's not going to be biased, somebody that's not going to be biased on the perspective of like, if there was another woman, I don't want her to only see things from my perspective. I would like for her to be in a space that she could see from both my perspective and also his, and be genuine, with the advice or wisdom, spiritual, counsel or whatever, if you may have it, during the time of me desiring to confide in this person about my relationship. But I had kind of already knew that because I've always been very much a private person. But there's a difference of like when you in the church and you in a relationship, and then like when you in the world and you're in a relationship. Like, I mean, when you're in the world and you're in a relationship, like people are in your business as much as you allow and you put out there. People, like if you're putting stuff on social media and different things like that, people will see that. But there's a layer to it where it's like, okay, everybody can see us on social media, but everybody won't see us in our day to day. Whereas if when you're in the church and you go to the same church, it's different. It was like, they're not only seeing us social media wise, they're not only seeing us publicly, but they're also a part of our inner circle. And so with that, it was just like everything that we did was on display.
Yeah.
And I was not used to that. I was not used to it at all. I was like, I don't like this. I don't like the fact if I flip my hair, everybody knows and they're like, oh, she got an attitude with him today. Like, I was not feeling it. I'm like, this is too much. And so it was something that I had to learn to grow through, because I had to get in a place where I did not allow, like he said, outside forces to, come in or like try to break up whatever he and I had. And even though we didn't continue throughout with our relationship, it was still a very valuable lesson. And it prepared me for like when it come time for me to be like married to my husband. I know that's something that I need to take into my marriage.
Yeah.
I have to be grounded and solid enough, not only with my husband, but in my relationship with God, that I don't allow people that can't give biblical and sound, wisdom and advice, trustworthy, knowledge or information to deter from what God has like, brought me to. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and people that are able to give, like you said, spiritual, sound, and unbiased, uh, objective advice. Because sometimes, one thing I learned is people take sides.
That is true.
So, is you got to find someone who is going to be real with you,
Mm-hmm.
and and even though they may be your friend or your family, they're going to be like, well, I think you're wrong in this,
Mm-hmm.
or they're going to say, you know what, that he was wrong or she was wrong, but this is where you misstepped.
Mm-hmm.
And so, honestly, when you go to a small church and you date, this is for all you people out there who do go to a small church and you date. It's very hard to keep things private because, like she said, we go to a small church and everybody know everybody, everybody's family. So if you came in and you looked at somebody a certain way, or you looked at your significant other a certain way, they're like, I guess maybe they're not on the best of terms. And she was the first person I dated in the church. All the other relationships I've been in had been outside the church, and she was really the first girl I dated who was truly sold out. As I've said many times, I've dated some girls who had just enough Jesus, but she had all of Jesus. So that was just managing your relationship with God while also being in a relationship was one thing that I really learned, because we would have Bible studies together, we would pray together, we would fast together.
That's true.
And we did all that, and I was not used to doing that, and it really opened my eyes to be that spiritual male head that I needed to be. And I realized, okay, yeah, no, I'm not there yet. And so our relationship kind of opened our eyes on some things that we both needed to work on. And ultimately, towards the end of the relationship, she decided that we needed to do a 30-day fast. And not like a full not eating fast, but just, a fast from each other, fast from social media, things of that nature. And in my experience, anytime you have to fast about a relationship, it's over. It's over. Listen, every time I've dated any girl, if the Lord tells me to do a 3-day or a 7-day or any type of fast while I'm in the relationship, every single time it's been because I need to get my mind prepared to break up with this person.
Oh my.
So we did the fast, and eventually I was at church and she was at work, and a man of God who we both trust spiritually, is rarely, if ever, off when it comes to things of God. And he let me know that this wasn't it, and I didn't just take his word for it, but I felt it in my spirit. And so I had to do the hard thing and let her know. I wanted to tell her to her face, but I texted her and said we needed to talk, and she already knew what it was. So now I think about it, that's probably kind of torturous, because you had to finish your shift, and you kind of just probably thinking like, oh, what is this about? But you know what it's about, but you don't want it to be about what you know it's about. So ultimately, we had to end the relationship. because the Lord saw fit. And it was hard. It hurt. I don't know if it hurt you, but it hurt me. And and it took me some time to get past being with you, because normally if I broke up with somebody, I wouldn't see them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'd miss them obviously, but you didn't have to see them. But I had to see you 2 times a week because we go to the same church. So I felt like the effects of the breakup lingered a little bit longer than they probably would have if we would have never seen each other again after that day. And that took some time to get over. And, during the next few months of us being broken up and still having to see each other, we would have to, it was kind of hard to adjust to just being friends. Because, obviously I still found you attractive. And, I was used to you in a relationship setting at that point, and I had to revert back to the friendship setting. And that was a little tough. And, but, I made it.
Oh my God.
I made it.
Well, the breakup was difficult for me as well, but if I'm honest, I just believe God had already prepared me spiritually. And so that's why it was like I was hurt, but I was already spiritually aware.
Yeah.
I was spiritually aware enough that when you text me and was like, I need to talk to you about something, I instantly knew in that moment, like, he's going to break up with me. I didn't need anybody to say anything. I didn't need, I didn't need nothing. It was like the spirit had already let me know, like, he's going to break up with you. And so I kind of had my moment at work, but it was like, I couldn't really cry or do too much because I was still on the clock. And so I'm like, okay. So I used the fact that, I had to work to just stay busy and kind of not really deal with it too much in the moment. So once I got off and you told me, I think that was when I was able to really release and okay. And so I had my moment, I cried and stuff or whatever. But ultimately, God is just so funny. But when I went in the house and I was still crying, he was like, I already told you. You already knew. Basically, just clean it up, get it together. I already told you. You already knew. So I was like, dang. But it hurt. It did. And it was just I think for me, it was more or less of the fact because I'm not big on allowing people to get in, to get close with me like that. And so when I finally did let my walls down and open myself up to just a romantic side again, period. Because before you and I, it had been almost 2.5, 3 years, I want to say. So I had been single for some time. And, I was single and I was content in my singleness, where it was like, okay, I was just focused on school and getting ahead career-wise.
Right.
I wasn't really thinking about, being in a relationship. And then I started to grow more spiritually, and I started to grow my relationship or whatever with God. And so that made it even the more where it was like, okay, I'm not thinking about a guy. I'm trying to stay focused and do what I need to do. And so and I can honestly say in our time of being friends, I genuinely took a hold of us, being friends before we dated, because I knew I still needed to grow more spiritually. And I think that us being friends helped me in a lot of ways of really becoming more grounded. And so I took it seriously. I took my relationship with God seriously. I take having friendships or just people in my inner circle seriously. So when I finally did get to that place of feeling that I could trust you and that I could let my guards down, then that's when I was like, okay, this is happening. But when we got to the place of having to break up, I wasn't like completely shattered because like I said, I feel like God had prepared me emotionally and like spiritually, but my mind went to like, okay, well, what am I gonna do now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, cause for me, with being in a church, it might sound weird, but like to a degree, I kind of felt like you were my anchor. Like you were what was helping me to stay in a lot of ways because of so much, like so many different difficulties and challenges and stuff that I was faced with when I came back to church. And so, and I'm not even just only you and like us being in a relationship, but like the friendship, us spending time, me being able to be with your family and genuinely being around people that loved me and poured into me, regardless of us being boyfriend and girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm just thinking like, oh God, like what's about to happen? Like, oh, I'm like, am I gonna end up, falling astray because like who else is gonna, like help me and support me and like, at that time I felt like I still needed some help spiritually. So I'm like, well, what's gonna happen? But then after some time, I just like, I pulled myself together and I was like, well, at the end of the day, I got to do whatever God is saying for me to do. And I knew that was what was most important. And so I sought God about it. And, God honored my prayer because I was like, Lord, I really want to still keep him as a friend. Like, I don't want this to have to be a relationship where the ties have to be severed like what he did with my past relationships
Mm-hmm.
because the past relationships that I had, God had completely cut out. Now, if the door was still open, it was because I left like a window or something like that open for somebody to have access to me, but God completely like made sure it was done and in his way. And so when it came to you, I'm like, well, this is the first guy that I'm like had a good relationship with. He's saved, he's living, he's doing the right things, and he helped me to grow spiritually, naturally, like, mentally, like, even though, like you said, you had your areas of where you felt you were more immature than I was, there were still areas of where you were mature that helped me to grow the more. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, even if I can't have him as my husband, I would like to still keep him as my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kept telling God, like, Lord, like, please don't, make me have to not have him as a friend. And so God began to give me revelation as to what was his requirements for us to keep a friendship. And God helped me to understand, like, okay, y'all have to separate. Y'all have to do some separating. Y'all have to back off on spending time with each other as much as y'all are. Y'all have to back up on the talking to each other as much. Like, he gave me a whole like blueprint on just doing some separating.
Yeah.
And it made a lot of sense because it was like, we were still attached to each other emotionally. Now, mind you, we did everything by the word, so there was no sexual relations or anything or whatever like that. Like, we strictly did everything, according to the word. So there was no soul ties or like anything like that, but it was just time spent.
Yeah.
It was, the building of the relationship and, and all of that. So it was like, even still with that, there was attachment, and
Mm-hmm.
so God was teaching me how to reverse it in a healthy way that we could still be a part of each other's lives. And I could remember it was a couple times when I was like we got to stop doing this, we got to stop doing that. And I could tell by the look on your face, like, girl, like, how you just gonna tell me this what we need to do? Like, you not bothered by this. But like, it wasn't that I wasn't bothered, it was just more or less that I was thinking more future.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I don't do this, I'm not going to have them at all.
Yeah.
So I have to do what God is saying, or I'm not going to be able to have this relationship at all. And so I can say this, and then I'll be done. I remember me calling Sister Sharon, which is, somebody that is a part of our ministry. And I called her and I was telling her the things that was on my mind, and I was letting her know what God had been revealing to me concerning us separating and, being able to keep that friendship. And she gave me some words of encouragement and she gave me some advice. And then she said to me, she said, I just want you to know that you are displaying so much maturity, spiritual maturity at this moment. to be cognizant of enough to know that you need to take heed to what God is saying in order for you to still have the desires of your heart. And so I thought that was a blessing. It was really a blessing in what she said. And she helped me to understand that what God was telling me is I had to keep him first.
Right.
If
Right.
ever I wanted my desires to go in front of me having him at the forefront of my life, then he would strip it away.
Mm.
And so that's what just kept playing in the back of my mind. It's like, I know if I don't get this right, I'm not going to have him as a friend at all. So I got to get my priorities in proper alignment so that I can still have him as a friend.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. And wow. I think back to that time, and a lot of I was really immature, y'all. Like I am what you would call a late bloomer. Like I'm stubborn, and I will slow things up as much as I will drag my feet. And I drug my feet a lot during that time. I remember the Lord was like, "Bro, I'm so sick of you." He said, "I am so sick of you, Gabe."
Oh my God.
Because I was just, the truth of the matter was, it wasn't that, I don't want to say like I was over you, but it didn't hurt anymore. But I was acting like it did. And like you said, there wasn't any sexual activity. You know, we didn't connect in that way. But I was like, bro, I don't want her as a friend. Like I wanted her in the capacity of marriage. That's what I wanted. I don't want, not that you're not a great friend, but it's like, that's not what I wanted for us. And so it took me a long time to accept that it's God's will for us to be friends. And I think a lot of times people will take, you know, if God sends somebody of the opposite sex into your life, most people take it as you're supposed to date. And so I had to learn that, you know what? No, she's a friend. She is a good friend. Because the truth of the matter was, and I've said this to you, like, I was the best man when I was with you because you made me want to be a better man. And it was hard for me to let go of that because I was like, Lord, how is this not good? Like, you see me, I'm praying consistently. I'm reading my word consistently. Okay, we're doing everything as you would have us to do. I mean, honestly, for the longest time, we didn't even kiss. Like there was nothing. We were so focused on just getting to know each other and doing everything right by the book. And and so after we broke up, for a few months, it was just hard to be around you. And it would be some days my manly flesh would take over, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this, Lord. She's too pretty, and I can't do it. But the Lord was just like, no, yes, you can, and you're going to. And it came a point probably April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 7 months later, where I was like, okay, this is never coming back. That what we had at that point was never coming back. And I was like, all right, cool. You know what? I'm over it. I'm done. I'm going to accept her as my friend. I'm going to accept her as someone who is supposed to be in my life in a friendship capacity. Because the truth of the matter is, sometimes you'll come in contact with people who are great as friends. Mm-hmm. They're better as friends than they are as in a relationship. They're better as friends than they are as lovers. Mm-hmm. They're better as friends than they are being married. And so that just so happened to be us.
That's true.
We are great
that is very
at
true.
friends.
True.
We are great at holding each other accountable. We are great. We're great at holding each other accountable. Maybe
I'm a little bit better at holding him accountable, but
these are lies.
Yeah.
No, see what I'm saying. I'm not talking about like, did you pray today? But more so like, if there's a problem, we're great at letting each other know the truth.
That's true. I can receive
she'll
that.
tell me about myself if I'm having a moment, or if I'm in a mood, or if I'm in my feelings. She'll let me know, Gabe, you're in your feelings. You need to get out of them. You need to do what the Lord is telling you to do. And it's the same for me. You know, she's in her mood, and we both understand, you know, there are times where you're just having a day.
That's true.
And we will let each other have that day. We may even offer to partake in their day. You know, there's been times where she was having a day and it just wasn't going good for her. And, you know, I just say, you know what, you want to go get some food? You want to get out the house? And just things like that helps, you know.
It does. That's true.
And we don't always have to criticize each other or tell each other about themselves. Sometimes all you need to do is be there.
That is very true. Like, I can say there was one time I was just kind of going through spiritually, and I didn't want to hear what nobody had to say. I told God, don't let one person come to me and say anything, because if they do, I'm going to give them the business. And I had every scripture and everything to help back up whatever I was going to argue and all that good stuff. And I decided to sit in the back of the church one day, and service was going on, worship and everything, and I saw him coming. And I was so annoyed that he was coming. But then he walked past, and then he came back, and when he did, he just sat on the side of me. Like, not a seat in between us on the side of me. Like, he sat directly on the side of me. And when he sat down, I could just feel the anointing coming from him, and I just started crying. And I was so irritated that God used him. I'm like, why did you use him out of all people? But I thank God for that, though, because it was like, you know, he was obedient and led by the Spirit to be able to listen when God say, hey, go over there and sit by your friend. And God didn't tell him my business. God didn't say what was going on with me, what wasn't going on with me. God just told him, go and sit next to her. And he had an ear to hear and to listen and to be obedient. And when he did that, it broke some things for me spiritually. And so I really appreciate it, because I'm the type of person where it's like, I can take constructive criticism. I can take you giving me that feedback and let me know about myself. But then there's times where it's like, I just don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear what nobody has to say. I don't want the pity party or the half encouragement. Like, I don't want none of that. And in that moment, as my friend, it wasn't the fact that he just knew me, but it was because he knows God, that he was able to reach me and help me to come out of what I was going through. So
That's good.
that's very important when, you know, having friendships, whether if it's of the same sex or opposite sex. When you are in relationship with God and you are truly connected, God will help you help your friend or help your mate, and, you know, different things like that. So yeah.
I remember when we were dating, and he was like, what if this relationship is just to prepare us for the person that we're actually going to be with? And I was like, oh my gosh, I hope that's not what it is. But in a lot of ways, it was.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we understood. I think even though we had some areas, like you said, that we weren't as mature in, I think for the most part, probably you a little bit more than me, handled that breakup as best as we could.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
it could have, again, being in a small church, it could have went completely left.
That's true.
It could have turned her away. It could have turned me away. And people had opinions. But we did not let those opinions mess up our friendship.
That's true.
Mess up the connection that we had. And, you know, if you may be going through a breakup where the Lord has led you to break up with somebody, you have to understand that it's for the best.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the best. It's because he has somebody better for you. Not that the person that God has for you is better than them. Like the woman that God has for me isn't better than she is, but the woman that God has for me is better for me than she was in the capacity of marriage. And the man that she's going to have is better for her than I am. So, you know, you have to understand that. and it'll hurt. You'll cry a couple tears. You'll have your days, and I'm sure you can attest. There were probably some days where you're like, "Is this really what you want me to do?" But in your spirit, you know that it is. And breakups are hard, but if God told you to do it, it's for the best. And it was for the best.
Amen. It was.
It was for the best. And you look at where we are now and how this friendship has blossomed. And some days I wonder, what if we never dated? What if we just stayed friends that entire time? What do you think?
Um, Honestly, I don't know. Like, I do think that there were some things that we maybe would not have been able to um learn or be prepared for, what was our next without the relationship.
Mm.
And I say that only because, like, as friends, when you are friends with someone, just strictly friends, and you don't go into that romantic zone, you don't do certain things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't do certain things for them. And that's just like, for him, as my friend, like, okay, yeah, he might have asked me to help him out with a couple of things or whatever the case might have been, and I would have done it as a friend. But to see him in a posture of possibly being my husband helped me to understand, like, when it comes time for me to be married and to have my husband, how to honor and respect and to serve my husband, where I probably wouldn't have got that with him being a friend to me. I mean, God is God, he can use creative different things or whatever, but that's just how it helped me. I'm the type of person where it's like I'm hands on. I got to learn by actually doing it or being in it. And me personally, I just think that if we had not gone through that relationship, there was things that I would have still had to go through to learn how to prepare and be a wife, how to prepare
Yeah.
and become, a wife, or to do those wifely things. Because like if you want to break it down to the basis of, making a plate for somebody or something like that, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not something would consider myself of ever having an issue with. Like, me as a friend, family member, whatever, like, you come over my house, I'm gonna treat you as a guest. That's a part of the custom for that. But when you talk about loving and caring for someone or praying for someone that you have a romantic relationship with, it it just like does something differently, on that scale of like your prayer life or your caring or different things of that nature. And that's just like me caring for my child compared to caring for a stranger. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, there's gonna be a difference in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we would still, of course, have a good friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe will we be as close, because
Good
there was
point.
some things that I only learned about him throughout our relationship. When we were friends, and so we didn't allow each other to see certain sides of us.
Yeah.
But when we became more in a romantic setting, it was like, okay, I caught myself giving my all. I'm sure he considered himself to do the same. And so it's like, in that, I'm giving all of me. Like, you're going to see every side of me. You're going to see my ugliness. You're going to see my goodness. You're going to see my silly side. You're going to see all of that. Whereas somebody that's, a friend, they don't get to see that romantic side of you. They just get this. They might see the silly. They might see the ugly sometime. They're going to see the good, but they don't get to see the romantic side. Like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. I agree. I was thinking the same thing. Like, maybe if we didn't date, there would be walls that we probably wouldn't have ever let down. You've seen me in a relationship capacity. Uh, I've seen you in a relationship capacity. We know how, for the most part, how each other, how each person is, uh, when it comes to a relationship. And so, you know, through the breakup, we were able to, for me, the breakup kind of helped me to be able to separate, be able to separate and to discern friends from people that, from the person I'm supposed to be with. So, with you, I had to learn to, it really taught me how to break up. It really did.
That is the craziest thing I have ever heard.
It really did. It really taught me how to break up. Because I didn't do what I would normally do because I cared so much about you. And you didn't do anything to me, you didn't cheat or give me any reason
whatsoever. Let me tell y'all, this woman is faithful. Once I'm in, I'm in. I don't do all that other stuff.
That is true. She's very, very loyal. And, you didn't do anything to me. You didn't give me any reason to not like you or to cut you off. So I had to learn to get over somebody without hurt. Mm-hmm. And I was used to, if we broke up, it's because somebody did something. So I'm just gonna have to hate you. But I was able to do it in love. And again, us seeing each other on a regular basis, it kind of forced you to have to face the feelings. So I would see you and I'd be like, it was so nice. But then I say, you know what? We're friends now. And that's what we're going to be. And so I thank God for our entire relationship. Even the time that we dated, and, even the breakup, and even to where we are now, which is the best of friends. She is my best friend. And so that's what we're going to talk about in part 2, friendships. Back to the work again, back on this grind, back on my feet to stand, back to the times, back to deliverance, still in my prime, back so the thoughts won't keep pressing my mind.